when people are building or buying properties, they need to understand and do their due diligence to get the right permits, to get the right paperwork before they do the deals and sign off on it and get a CFO.
Demolition is not new to Lagos State, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. It's been, they have intensified their effort to demolishing buildings, but a lot of people are trying to put ethnic coloration into the conversation, into the mix, because they've been saying that, most buildings that are demolished is owned by the Igbos. I don't have, the data to buttress that point, but if you go online, that is the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the YNE podcast. Thank you for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button, like, share, and engage us on the comment section. We're talking about the recent building demolition in Lagos, Nigeria. It looks like the state government demolishes building every other day in Lagos. And it's just unfortunate that people's investments, people's lifelong savings just, goes into water without any compensation. And even if they're provided some compensation, you would think it would be enough. It wouldn't be enough. It probably won't be the value of the property because the government will find a way to, not pay for the true value of the property. And it's important for people that are building houses, for people that are invested in properties, to make sure they're getting the right document from the right places. And we know governments do change, policies change. Maybe the previous government approves this area uh, for buildings, and the new government will come and say, hey, this is not what we want. This does not fit the plan for the city, for the state in the next 10 years. So we have to demolish your building. That's how people lose their investment, they lose their money, and they're rendered homeless. And maybe somebody has saved it for a long time to build a house and enjoy it as their retirement benefit will lose everything. So it's just unfortunate. And I think it's important for the state government to start looking at ways to compensate people. And also when people are building or buying properties, they need to understand and do their due diligence to get the right permits, to get the right paperwork before they do the deals and sign off on it and get a CFO. What do you think?
I mean, demolition is not new to Lagos State, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. It's been, they have intensified their effort to demolishing buildings. I think a lot of times their reason is because of they say that people, build on the waterways where water is supposed to escape out from Lagos, and we know that Lagos has been dealing with a lot of massive flooding. So basically, they're saying that they're removing everything or anything that is obstructing, the flow of water out of Lagos State. But if you really want to look deeper, I don't know. I don't want to go that direction. But a lot of people are trying to put ethnic coloration into the conversation, into the mix, because they've been saying that, most buildings that are demolished is owned by the Igbos. I don't have the data to buttress that point. But if you go online, that is the conversation. But my question is how, especially the one that we saw yesterday or today, how did they allow somebody to build to that point without, telling the person that, hey, this building is not approved? And, they allow somebody to build from the DPC foundation level, decking, the first decking, then roofing, without them realizing that these buildings do not have a proper documentation. I think there is much more than what we are saying, unless, the developers are also, going behind closed doors to get some shady approvals. But even if they are getting shady approvals from whatever, is it land and survey or office of the development or whatever, somebody should have been able to call it to see that, we did not approve this building. I remember when back when I was in Warri, yeah, they used to come and do inspection at almost at every level of the building. In fact, people pull up randomly to inspect your building and ask for documentation. But I'm surprised to see that. In fact, not just the one we saw yesterday or today, some buildings that are completely built, people moving into the houses and they still demolish them because they claim that they don't have proper documentation. I wonder how somebody is able to carry a building from DPC level up until finish it, move into it, and the government later is just realizing that they did not approve the building. I think two things are involved. Is it that there is something underneath, or the government employees or the government this thing agencies are simply not doing the job, and I think they need to fire some people.
Yeah, you've definitely raised a very good point. And the reason is that we all know what happens in Nigeria. There's no point in sugarcoating it. If you're going to an office to get a documentation, and some people in those offices won't even look at you. I mean, if you're not ready to bribe them or give them a kind of settlement, they won't even look at you. They won't even look at your papers. So, in order to fast track the process, people would rather go take shortcuts, get those approvers needed to move forward with buildings, and then they'll get it and move on from there. So it's not new. I mean, should this be happening? No, but does it happen? Yes, even though I don't have any proof to back it up, but I know things like this happen. If you're going to any government office to get any kind of documentation, you need to know somebody, right? Even if there's somebody you know doesn't work in there, that person will connect you to the person that works in there or to their family members or to their friend. And all you need to do is, hey, so person referred me to you, and this is what I need done. They do the work for you and you pay them, right? When you do international passports, it's like that. When you go to court to get in documentation, it's like that. And if you're not ready to bribe or get something or rub ends with people, you might be waiting for a very long time before your documentation can be looked at, even if it'll be looked at all. So yeah, that is not new. It's just unfortunate that things like this happen, and people need to just hold them accountable, hold the people in those offices accountable, making sure that they're doing their jobs. And it's just crazy. And to the point you made about maybe a tribal coloration to it, it's definitely possible. Again, we don't have any proof to back it up, but we saw in the last election where the Igbos were prevented from voting in some areas in Lagos. So it could be true. There's been this back and forth on the internet about uh, who owns Lagos. Some people think it's the Yoruba. Some people think whoever lives in Lagos owns Lagos, right? Whether you were born in Lagos or whether you traveled down to Lagos by foot or by vehicle. If you're a resident of Lagos, you are also a stakeholder in Lagos. But it could be possible. Could be that is the reason why Igbo-owned buildings are being demolished. We've seen cases whereby streets named after Igbo people were changed. And this happened recently, maybe a few months, a few weeks ago. Street names were changed from Igbo names to Yoruba because the Yoruba are trying to prove a point that they own Lagos. Could this be a reason for demolition of those properties? Yes, but if these Igbo businesses, the building owners have the proper documentation, they should be able to take the state government to the court and hopefully they'll win if they have the proper documentation. If they don't have the proper documentation, then they're going to be at a loss. And I'm sure the state will not compensate them for any damages done to their property.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I want to see a Nigeria where wherever you reside in Nigeria, you are a stakeholder. In America, I have never heard anybody laying claim to the state of Indiana or to the state of California or to the state of Illinois. You find yourself there, living there, you are a stakeholder. So I wish it will happen in my lifetime, but the way the whole thing and everything is going, I highly doubt that it will happen. People are so territorial, like they lay claim to their territory. This is, Igbo land. This is Lagos State. It belongs to Lagos people. But I honestly think that if you live in Lagos, you should partake in the progress of Lagos and you should be a stakeholder. In fact, if you live in Lagos, you should be able to, regardless of where you're from, you should be able to run for an office, same as any other state in Nigeria. If you live in Kano, you should be able to run for an office in Kano. I don't see why political positions are just meant for the people that, are indigenous to the state. It shouldn't be like that. In America, anybody can be anything in any state, so long you reside in that place and you pay your taxes there. So although America is way more advanced than Nigeria in terms of democracy, but I would really like to see a day like that. And maybe the reason why people are saying trying to throw in, ethnic coloration into the discussion is because trade fair is predominantly a business place for the Igbo. And the whole demolition, about 19 buildings, I think they said each of the building is at the very stage they demolish them. I think they are worth about 190 million naira. So multiply that by 19, that's a sizable change. That's a lot of change right there. So if the conversation or the intent is to say that the Igbos should leave, I think the federal government can solve that problem real quick. It's not even difficult to solve. I think myself I can solve that problem. All you need to do is construct a rail from Lagos to Onitsha and Aba, and whoever that is bringing in goods from China, from anywhere in the world, your goods land in Lagos, you put it on the train, and you go back to your state to sell your goods. Or better still, open up the seaport in the east. There is one in Warri, there is one in Port Harcourt, supposedly, and they should be able to site another seaport in Onitsha. Problem solved. That's probably the way to solve it. If the federal government have the political will, they can borrow money, In fact, the money they are using to construct the coastal highway is almost enough to do all of these things. So, and that is also a way to decongest Lagos, to free up Lagos, because as it is, Lagos is very, very congested. In fact, I used to tell my wife and used to tell people that if you give me a land, even if it's 500 by 500, you give me for free in Lagos, I might tell you thank you and say just keep it. I'm not taking it because it's just too congested. It's too busy for me. Well, I remember when I was doing my visa, they woke me up about 3 o'clock in the morning for my 8 o'clock appointment. I really did not like it at all. So I think that's a way for them to decongest Lagos, unless the state and the federal government don't want to lose the economic activities in Lagos. Otherwise, I think it's a very simple thing to solve.
Yeah, that makes sense. Businesses should not be localized in particular states, especially when we have other states that are viable that could, and do businesses that could act and do economic activities. So businesses should not just localize in Lagos. A lot of big businesses, when you look for their addresses, their headquarters is either in Lagos or in Abuja. Right? What about those other smaller states that needs to be developed? Right? You just don't want to leave them and not have them participate in the economic development of the country. Because, if other states are better, people will try to migrate from Lagos to whichever state that has a bubbling economy, that has a bubbling lifestyle. Yeah, Lagos, I definitely agree, is very congested, and that's why things are very expensive over there. But in other states, things are a little bit cheaper compared to Lagos. So I believe that's a great idea because the people in government are listening and they're truly looking to make a change. Businesses should not be localized in Lagos. They should also try to venture into other parts of Nigeria. That way they can provide employment. And some people work in Lagos, they don't make a lot of money. And half of the time, or majority of the time, they spend 90% of their monthly income on transportation. So it's not enough to continue to enjoy life, and they sit in traffic for 3 to 4 hours. When it rains, it's another problem, right? And based on the things that I've seen, it's that there's not a lot of flood on the mainland, but when you go to the island, you go to Lekki, you have a lot of flooding. It's because they're on the waters and probably no proper drainage system. But on the mainland, flooding really happens.
Yeah, I think the reason why they've been having a lot of that flood, maybe they are not just feeling it very well, because I think a lot of those land are swampy land and they're probably not doing a good job filling them before they start building. And then proper drainage. Maybe they're just doing a shabby job and they're not constructing the drainage very well. So um yeah, for me, I think if there is ethnic coloration, the federal government need to step in and see how they can decongest Lagos. And in fact, if they open up other seaports, the economic activities may even double on the federal side. double or triple because people will move around. People will probably be pushed to open more businesses and stuff like that. And people wouldn't be spending half of their life in traffic because if you live in Lagos and you live for 80 years, out of that 80 years, you probably spend almost 35 years in traffic. I don't know if the government is truly interested in bettering the life of people. I think that's what they need to do. Is either they construct a rail that carries a container, carries goods, without having, so that you don't have to be driving on the road because by the time you drive from Lagos to Aba or to anywhere in the east, you probably spend another 3 million to settle police and the customs on the road. So instead of that, construct a rail, put it there, and then people will take their goods to where they are going. So I think that is what they need to do. Let us know what you think. Were you affected by the recent demolition, or have you ever been affected by the demolition in Lagos State? Let us know about your experience. You think their reason for demolition is valid, or you just think is beyond that? Let us know what you think in the comment section, and we'll be happy to engage you. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you in the comment section.